The Earth, Moon, and Sun. This is our first unit in astronomy. This is Lesson 1. The title of Lesson 1 is The Sky from Earth. So what can we see in the night sky? Depending on how dark the sky is where you are, you might see 2,000 or 3,000 stars using just your eyes. On a clear night, you may see stars, the moon, planets, meteors, or even comets. Our moon. About half of every month, Earth's moon outshines everything else in the night sky. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite. A satellite is a body that orbits a planet. You may also see planets. These objects tend to move throughout the night sky against the backdrop of the stars. These are planets. A planet is an object that orbits the sun. It's large enough to have become rounded by its own gravity and has cleared the area of its orbit. There are 8 planets in our solar system. 5 of them are visible from Earth without a telescope. Those 5 are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Meteors and comets. So have you ever seen a shooting star? The sudden bright streak is called a meteor. A meteor is a streak of light produced when a small object burns up, entering our atmosphere. You can see a meteor on almost any night. Comets are much rarer. A comet is a cold mixture of dust and ice that gives up a long trail. That trail of light occurs due to dust and gas being burnt up as it approaches the sun. Finally, in the night sky, you may see stars. Stars appear as tiny points of light. However, scientists infer that a star is a giant ball of hot gas, much like our own sun. They're mainly composed of hydrogen and helium. As seen from Earth, the position of stars relative to each other do not seem to change. Other things you may see in the night sky. You may see constellations. For thousands of years, humans have seen patterns in groups of stars and given names to them. A constellation is a pattern or group of stars that people imagine to represent a figure, animal, or object. Astronomers also use the word constellation for an area of the sky and all the objects in that area. Different cultures have different constellations. In Western culture, there are 88 constellations. Most constellation names used today, they come from ancient Greek names, and the ancient Greeks probably took those names from the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians. Some constellation names come from Latin words. The constellation Leo, for example, is named from the Latin word meaning lion. Some constellations are named for people or animals in Greek myths. You may have read some of these myths in school, or even in books. Do the names Pegasus or Perseus sound familiar? They are mythological characters, and they're also constellations. One such constellation is the constellation Orion. So how do we find constellations? We use a star chart in order to determine where a constellation is in the sky. This is an example of a star chart. So how do we go about using star charts? First, we need to choose a star chart that fits the area in which we live. So for example, this one is for the northern hemisphere. We hold the chart upright, right in front of us, and then turn the chart so the label at the bottom matches the direction that we're facing. One way to determine if you have it the correct way is look for the Big Dipper. If you see the Big Dipper in the night sky, we're looking north. Then we can align the star chart based on the direction that we're looking. We hold the chart at eye level, and we compare the figures on the bottom half of the chart to the sky in front of us. A few other constellations you may see in the night sky include Cygnus, Ursa Major, also known as the Big Bear, Scorpius, and Cassiopeia. A star chart can help you find constellations in the night sky. It may seem a little strange at first, but with some practice, the charts can be easy to use. You can probably recognize the Big Dipper. This group of stars is actually not a constellation itself. It's part of the constellation Ursa Major, or the Great Bear. The two stars at the end of the Dipper's bowl are called the pointer stars. Picture an imaginary line between those two pointer stars. If we continue away from the bowl on a line between those two stars, the first fairly bright star that you come to is Polaris. Polaris is the North Star, and it is located close to the sky's North Pole. So how do objects in the sky appear to move? Stars, planets, and other objects appear to move over time. They do not move in space, but those actual motions and their apparent or visible motions may be very different. The apparent motion of objects in the sky depends on the motions of us on Earth. Stars generally appear to move from east to west through the night. This apparent motion is actually caused by Earth's turning from west to east. The Sun's apparent motion during the day is also caused by Earth's motion. Constellation and star patterns remain the same year after year, but which ones you can see varies from season to season. So for example, you can find Orion in the eastern sky on winter evenings. Usually in February and March, Orion is very easy to see. But by spring, you'll see Orion in the west, and it slowly disappears below the horizon. That usually happens shortly after sunset. These seasonal changes are caused by Earth's orbit around the sun. Each night, the position of most stars shifts slightly to the west. Soon you no longer see stars once visible in the west, and other stars appear in the east. There are a few constellations that you can see all year long. These are the ones closest to the North Star. So as Earth rotates, these constellations never appear to rise or set. Our planets. Our planets appear to move against the backdrop of stars. Because the planets all orbit the sun in about the same plane, they appear to move through a narrow band in the sky. This band is called the zodiac. It includes constellations such as Taurus, Leo, and Virgo. Some planets, when they are visible, can be seen all night long. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are all farther from the sun than Earth is. Sometimes Earth passes between them and the sun. When this occurs, the planets are visible after sunset, once the sun's bright light no longer blocks the view. You can see Venus and Mercury only in the evenings or the mornings. They are closer to the sun than Earth is, so they always appear close to the sun. Venus is the brightest object in the night sky, other than the moon. Mercury appears low in the sky and is visible for a limited time around sunrise or sunset. One apparent motion that we have is this idea of opposite motions. The restaurant at the top of Seattle's Space Needle, it rotates much as Earth does. The restaurant turns in one direction, which makes objects outside appear to move in the opposite direction. So the restaurant turns in this direction. which causes objects in the background to appear to move in the opposite direction. So if we were to draw this mountain in the background as it's moving, the mountain would progressively seem to move in the opposite direction that the restaurant is spinning.